My name is Nicholas Point. I am a Chinook Scholar for the 2015-16 cohort, and I'm sitting here with respected leader Chief David Jimmie. David Jimmie is a community member, elected chief, and CEO for his band Squiala First Nation, which is located here in Chilliwack, BC. And David has his executive MBA in Aboriginal Leadership and Business Administration from the Simon Fraser University. He is also the president of Chilliwack Tribes and Stalo Nation, which represents 11 bands out here in the Stalo territory. He is also appointed as a director of the New Relationship Trust, as well as the Chilliwack Chamber of Commerce. All right, so Dave, you're considered a young man in leadership. Can you speak to the journey that has led you to where you are today?
Sure. Bit of an awkward journey, I think. I don't think I ever set out to, as a young boy, that I would become a chief or a leader one day. It wasn't something that, growing up in the community, I was ever connected to. My dad was on council a few terms, and I always struggled to find strong leadership here in Squiala. We always had, we're a small community, so I wasn't involved, and I didn't get to actively participate or actively see what our leaders were bringing to the table at other, whether it was with Stalo Nation or whether it was at any of the provincial organizations. So I didn't actually get to witness it, so I don't know. But the engagement between the community and our leadership in the past, I don't feel was very strong. So I guess growing up was a bit different. I think some people choose a path and some people live a path, and I don't think I ever chose it. I always felt like I was sort of, my mother had a lot to do with sort of pulling me in a direction without me actually knowing it, and I moved away for a while, and she always kind of made sure that I was still informed about everything that was happening in the community. So little steps along the way. I think like everybody, I made mistakes and learned from them, and that was the important thing, was being able to recognize that you do make mistakes and how do you move forward from them. But eventually I finished up a major construction project in West Bank, and I was trying to decide what I was going to be, where I would go next, and I went traveling for a year, and it was on that trip at one point I could hear my grandmother, those hard to explain, those feelings that you get, but it was as though she was saying, okay, it's time for you to go home. And that, at that moment, I remember specifically going, okay, I'm going to get involved. And so I came home and started to get involved, doing some land management in the community and working on the negotiations with our development project. And through that process, that's when I felt that it was time to step up and do something more. And it was not to discredit our previous leadership. I think people are in different positions at different times, and you reach a place where your work is done at that particular time, and maybe it's time for somebody to step in and play a different role, and that's where I felt that it was time for me to step up and become run for a chief position.
Very good. So you kind of mentioned it in your previous response, but I'm curious to know what motivated you to get into leadership, and what motivates you during trying times.
It might sound kind of corny, but the greater good. I think there's a need for change, and it's easy to get stuck in these sort of bogged down Indian Act mentality that we see a lot of our communities go through, and not understand why they think a certain way, or why things have to be a certain way under, well, the band office does this and our governance looks like that, but really wasn't a result of our doing, and it's sort of something that has come from someone else, not our own people. And so motivation really comes, one, to see change, but children. A big thing for me is youth. And a lot of times we can't change. If I have an older cousin who's set in his ways, it's really difficult to get them to see something a bit different. But for example, their son, who may be the same age as my son, when I see my son going through different stages, or how I've learned from parenting that I didn't have, and what I can do differently, I think that's where that's the motivation is, okay, we've got an opportunity to create change with that young boy. And so although I may not be able to reach parents, and it's not my responsibility to change or tell them what to think, but we give them the freedom to do that, and we create the space that gives them the opportunity to look at something different here in the community. And I think that's a big motivator, is they don't have to think inside the Indian Act. They can think outside of it and be creative and do whatever they want, and sometimes you just have to be able to create the environment for them to do it. Yeah.
Very cool. All right. So how do you manage the successes and challenges that come with your several roles that you carry?
I think come hand in hand, successes and challenges.
They do.
I think if you sometimes as you reach different success milestones, it also comes with a bit of jealousy from people that can be very difficult to manage, and it's easy to have a target painted on your back as you sort of, what you see as progress, others don't see the bigger picture. And I'm not very good at managing success. People would sort of say, oh, you've completed this, or you did that, a great job, and I think about it for about, I don't know, a few minutes, and then my mind, before that's done, my mind's already gone to the next thing. So I have a hard time sort of, even school, it was like, okay, you're done, you finally finished your MBA, you should be really proud, and it was like, okay, but now what can I do?
On to the next project. So you're the creator, you're the innovator.
Yeah, and you kind of I need to always keep moving. I have a very hard time sitting still.
Mm-hmm.
And then managing the challenges, you have to be grounded. I think that, and same with success, you really need to maintain that grounding feeling, and you have to be able to take the challenges. So whether it's criticism, I don't claim to know everything. I know a little bit about this, a little bit about that, and I feel like this role really gives you the freedom for your knowledge to increase like exponentially if you can take the time to learn all the different aspects to it.
Mm-hmm.
But you really also need to keep your ears open and be able to take criticism well, and the same as growing up, be able to take it, learn from it, and move forward with it in a good way.
Very good. Well, to finish, that leads to my last question. What advice do you have for up-and-coming leaders?
Listen. One of the key points of leadership is being able to actively listen, and I think a lot of us, it takes a while to learn that skill, because we have something on our minds and we're waiting to say it, and we're not hearing what we should be taking into consideration before we actually deliver our own messaging. So it's important to listen with an open heart and open mind, and also be yourself. I think a lot of times we see leaders who feel they need to be somebody else when they get into a role, and they're not being true to themselves. And so it's important to say that those little quirky things that you might have, or those little, I think that's important to me. I think that character means a lot, and I think it goes long way. Even that bit of vulnerability, because I was told once by a long-time leader that I shouldn't show emotion in certain instances, and I said, no, absolutely not, I don't agree. It's who I am,
Mm-hmm.
and when I show emotion, it shows how much I care about what's going on, and it was a particular instance, and I felt it's important for me to demonstrate people to see that, and so always be true to yourself. And then I think, moving forward with younger leadership, get outside of the box. I think it's so important to think outside of the box and how we can do things differently. Politics and governance has been done the same forever. And there's something bigger and better out there. Like, there's got to be a better way to do things. There's always someone out there who knows a little bit more than you and is, smarter than you, faster than you, does all these different things better. So how do we adapt and think outside the box? So I guess stay grounded, be true to yourself, and really try to create positive change. Keep that in mind.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, David, that concludes our interview. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me today.
Thank you.